storm made landfall overnight as a Category 1 hurricane.
Woo, that was a big one.
It was crazy, just water pouring in, pouring in, pouring in.
Some trees down, some power lines.
It is never safe to walk or drive through flooded waters.
And as we come on the air here at 3 o'clock, we are tracking what is now Tropical Storm Nicole. Right now, it is moving north after bringing strong winds and heavy rain to the Bay Area. We have special coverage of the storm and its impacts all across our state. This is 10 Tampa Bay. I'm Dave Wagner.
And I'm Carolina Lead. We are your hurricane headquarters, so we will be with you for the next hour, showing you where the storm is now and what it left behind. Nicole made landfall around 3 a.m. this morning along Florida's east coast, just south of Vero Beach. And within about an hour, it weakened quickly, downgrading to a tropical storm as it moved inland. But that storm brought down power lines, knocking power out to tens of thousands of homes and businesses. Sadly, investigators in Orange County say 2 people died after they were electrocuted by down lines in the Conway neighborhood. Right now, leaders across the state are asking that you stay indoors and stay safe. And in an already storm-weary state, some areas that were still recovering from Hurricane Ian, which hit just 6 weeks ago, now face new issues. We'll show you what people are dealing with across the state in a moment. But first, let's take a live look outside from our Tampa camera. You can see there, very, very wet afternoon for us here. And of course, you know, the camera there covered with water there as we look out down in Tampa. Let's take a look at the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. This is a live look. At this hour, it is still closed. It shut down just after 6:30 this morning due to high winds. We can see the camera there moving back and forth. It's incredibly windy. We're still waiting on word when this could reopen. We have a lot to get to tonight with crews live across the Bay Area checking on outages, flooded roads, and damage. Let's begin with 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins. Bobby is tracking the storm right now. Bobby, it is moving quickly. Where is it right now?
All right, it's now moving away from the area. The center is actually, looks like it's just now on the coast. I think it's off into the Gulf of Mexico, hugging the coast up along, say, Levy County, way up there. It will basically skirt along the coast and make a 4th landfall by the time we get towards later this evening. Winds now are at, well, tropical storm strength at 45-mile-per-hour winds. That was our 1 o'clock update. We should get another one at 4 o'clock with a track update as well, too. The key here, it's moving to the northwest at 15 miles per hour, so that speed has maintained. It was 13, was up to 16, but it's still maintaining the speed, and that gets it up and out of here. Now, the weather that we have been dealing with, things are starting to quiet down a little bit. You can see some rain still out over the Gulf of Mexico. That is the wind shifting to the west and west-southwest. That's why it's still so windy out there. And that will continue. However, all of the wind, all of the rain will slowly decrease as this pulls away tonight. So we're going to stay on the breezy side, well, windy side for the next couple of hours, breezy tonight. But you already notice some dry air trying to get in train here, and it's cutting some of that rain off. Even down here towards Port Charlotte, up towards Harding, DeSoto County, that group of rain showers there is starting to thin a little bit. But it's lines like that that we'll kind of see on and off for the next 4 to 6 hours or so. Here's the latest track again as of 1 o'clock, moving to the northwest at 15. That puts it out near St. Mark's National Forest area in the Panhandle, basically, by 7 o'clock tonight with 45-mile-per-hour winds. So it will be weakening. It's not going to strengthen just because it's out over water. That water's not warm enough. It's in the 70s. It will be extratropical and then moving up the Blue Ridge as we get going through the next couple of days. Now, winds here, sustained in the 20s, gusts in the 30s. Look down south, a lot less wind. This is all moving away. So the wind will be coming down. We could still see some gusts in excess of about 40 miles per hour, especially right along the immediate coast. But we've already dropped the tropical storm warnings for Sarasota, DeSoto, and Highlands County. These will likely drop from south to north as we get going through the next couple of hours. In fact, I think by 4 o'clock, they will drop a lot of those because we're just not going to see that much more wind. In fact, you can see it on our planner. Winds coming down, sustained in the teens for the next several hours, 8 o'clock to about 10 o'clock. We're getting those winds down around 10 to 15 miles per hour. Coming up, we're going to talk about the forecast winds. We'll talk about what we've seen already, and we'll even talk a little bit about the landfalls that we've seen so far.
All right, Bobby, thanks. Let's take a look now at what people are dealing with across the state right now. Over in Daytona, huge waves lashed the coast through the storm, threatening beaches and the nearby structures there. Just look at how far in these waves came to the buildings here, nearly claiming this entire beachfront property.
And taking a look over in St. Johns County, we have an example of what not to do. Walking around in floodwaters during or after a storm is not safe, as there can be downed electrical lines or other hazards that you just can't see. Please try to stay out of floodwaters unless you are in an emergency.
Deerfield Beach didn't escape the storm's effects either. Here you can see massive waves crashing over a pier last night. The city says the pier sustained damage to the wooden parts from the strong surf. There was also a staircase farther down the beach that got fully torn out. No word just yet on when that pier will be reopening. So a lot of damage across the state, not as much as we've seen certainly during Hurricane Ian, but the storm is strong.
Yeah, so as you stay indoors, we are checking on conditions for you across the Tampa Bay area. So let's take a look right now at St. Pete Beach. That's where 10 Tampa Bay's Malik Rankin has been all day long. Malik, what's it look like out there now?
Yeah, good afternoon, you guys. Conditions here have been pretty consistent, but as we saw in the last hour or so here, the rain has let up in this area. But don't let that changing conditions fool you. The National Weather Service, they have issued a rip current warning. It's a high risk, so they're saying even the best of swimmers could be swept away if they were swimming in these conditions. Now, that stays in place until tomorrow evening. Now, I want to show you guys just how much conditions have changed in this area. Take a look at some video we took just a few hours ago. The visibility here so low. You can see these waves crashing against the rocks. There's a barrier that stands between us and the inlet in which we're standing alongside, and that water coming up on that barrier, splashing up against us here. Now, driving through here this morning, roads were pretty clear. It looked like a lot of these businesses were closed down, but for St. Pete businesses that have gone through a couple of storms, they say they've been through this before. They know how to handle it safely. I'm here at Woody's, and while this outdoor area, obviously nobody's sitting out here, the bar inside packed full of people. They're actually watching our newscast, cheered as they saw the segment here on the TV in the bar. So if you're hearing some of that, clearly people here in light spirits, keeping an eye on the storm as they practically have a front row seat to the conditions here. Live in St. Pete Beach, Malik Rankin, 10 Tampa Bay.
People cheering there. Now let's get out live to Sarasota.
And that's where 10 Tampa Bay's Aduri Chumba has been all day long. Aduri, a lot of wind out there. You saw some debris around the area.
That's right, it's pretty windy out here. I am at the Tony Saprito Pier in Sarasota, and let me just show you what's going on here. Just moments ago, the owner of a catamaran that had crashed into the pier just successfully towed it away. They're trying to get it to where it was moored over by the Sarasota Squadron. It had crashed into the pier just hours ago, and they spent a lot of time trying to secure it and prevent it from hitting and continuously bobbing up and down. Now, an eyewitness told us that the vessel broke loose from the mooring at the Sarasota Sailing Squadron, which is across the bay, and it floated all the way to here. It's already caused some significant damage to the pier's railing. Now, recall this pier not long ago underwent a $1.4 million upgrade and only reopened in April of last year. Now, the reason for those repairs then was also because of boats breaking off and crashing into it during storms like this one. Now, the owners, as I said, have been able to tow it out and pull it out, try to get it to a secure location. They were able to salvage the mast and some rigging on the boat, but I am told that it is a total loss. Now, we're going to also find out, who is going to be responsible now for that damage. In the meantime, though, the Sarasota County Department of Health has issued a red tide advisory for all 16 beaches of the county. For now, live in Sarasota, Aduri Chumba, 10 Tampa Bay.
Aduri, thanks. Governor Ron DeSantis has been with state emergency officials today monitoring the storm.
He says no matter where you are, even if the storm has passed you, you should be cautious if you have to go outside.
You do have downed trees, you have power lines, you have some road washouts, combined winds and storm surge. We've seen beach erosion, especially in areas that had already seen erosion from Hurricane Ian. And these are places like Brevard, Volusia, Flagler, and St. Johns counties. After the storm, there will be likely be flooding in some areas, so make sure to avoid floodwaters as they may be down power lines and other hazards.
He also said ahead of the storm, they had 17,000 linemen on standby, ready to respond to outages. And as we speak, those crews are busy at work.
Yeah, it's going to take some time. In Tampa, city leaders said they have crews checking on street signs and debris. So far, they report no major issues.
Just some power lines down, some trees down, nothing out of the ordinary.
We have an increase of fire alarms, which all of them has been benign, no major fires. We've had a couple of down power lines, which called minor fires with limbs, but that's been taken care of.
Just want to remind everybody the safest way to handle an intersection where the traffic light is non-functioning is to treat it as a four-way stop.
And right now, they say the safest thing to do is to stay inside until the storm passes.
They also say about 30 people stayed in a hurricane shelter last night as a precaution, but as of about an hour ago, the shelter is now closed. In just 3 minutes, we will have the latest on power outages across the Tampa Bay area and take you out live to Lakeland to check on the conditions there.
And keeping an eye on power outages at this hour. This is Tampa Electric's outage map right here. They are reporting right now 6,171 outages all across the Tampa Bay area right here. Let's move over, if we can, to Duke Energy, and we have to push the button down here. We have various electric companies around the state. Right now, Duke is reporting 2,160 outages across the state of Florida. And let's move over, if we can, to Florida Power and Light right here. This doesn't give us a total right here, but we can go into individual counties right here. Let's take a look at Manatee County. The total number of customers out, 2,150, and down in Sarasota County, 7,340. Florida Power and Light gave us an update on when they might be able to restore power and their plan for that.
We have about 13,000 people that are deployed right now, and they have been working overnight in between feeder bands to get the power back on to our customers. And now we are flowing crews from the south behind the storm north so we can get lights on just as quickly as possible as the storm continues to move across the state and north and then exits the state.
We will continue to keep an eye on outages throughout the day, but right now, let's take a look at conditions out in Polk County. 10 Tampa Bay's Eric Glasser is live in Lakeland for us now. Eric, what does it look like out there now?
Well, it's getting better, a lot better, I can tell you. This morning, the conditions were very different from what we're seeing now. Lighter winds now, no rain falling at this moment, although there have been bands. I can tell you, if you had woken up with us this morning here in the Lakeland area, just when the sun started to come out, you could see that the center of circulation from Nicole was actually passing just over this area. And so, yes, we're very grateful. No reports of any major damage, no reports of any major injuries, but there was no shortage of heavy-duty winds and rain. Let me show you some of the images that we were able to capture from over in Plant City. Nicole battered some of the familiar spots like the Strawberry Festival grounds, leaving light damage there as well. Standing water, no shortage of debris. Several businesses were closed, but the Forbes Produce Market just off of I-4, they were still open. Normally packed on a Thursday, but today only a handful of customers willing to brave the elements. And back here in Lakeland, Nicole's winds were fierce enough for several hours to create waves and whitecaps on a normally calm Lake Hollingsworth. Again, no shortage of debris here, standing water also, but the biggest issue has been power outages. Hundreds of Lakeland Electric customers in the dark for hours, line crews doing their best to get those lights back on. Again, as I said, right now, conditions definitely improving in this area. We are still seeing an occasional gust of wind. Another band will eventually make its way through, but through the clouds, I'm starting to see small breaks of brighter sunshine. Lots of people walking around Lake Hollingsworth now, trying to get in a little bit of time and recreation. There's a boat ramp not far from us. We saw a gentleman ready to put his boat back in on the lake. As you can see, much different condition out here now than earlier earlier today. We'll have more coming up for you at 5 o'clock, guys. Back to you.
Eric, that's great to see. It's nice to see that storm moving away. Let's get back to Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins right now. It's headed in the right direction, away from us.
Absolutely. And you know, it was a tropical storm that came through. Most of the winds that we've seen so far have been gusts in the 60s, which we can handle, right? Severe thunderstorm warnings we get in the summertime is when the wind is 58 miles per hour or higher. So yeah, we're used to that. Live look across the area. Obviously, everything's gray for the most part, but things, as you can imagine, are getting better. I want to take you down to Clearwater Beach here because, man, oh, man, look at that. You remember the old movie Victory at Sea? I'm a surfer, and back in the day, that's what we would say. When we have these onshore winds, it's not worth paddling now. It's going to be victory at sea. But surfers, tomorrow, this will look better. There will be some swell left over, and the wind will be coming down. Now, that has a high rip current risk. We do not want swimmers out in that. That's just not a smart thing to do right now, okay? So be careful out there. 71 degrees, 68-degree dew point. There's a hurricane. It's been in the 60s and 70s out there. You can see the rain, as Eric was just showing you. Look at Polk County, Lakeland area. Not as much rain for sure in that area now. We do have another heavier band that's over southern Sarasota, up through Harding, DeSoto counties, parts of Polk County. That will thin out, but it's this type of banding that we're going to continue to get through the evening hours, although I do think that will actually thin out a little bit with some dry air getting in here. Let's talk landfalls for Nicole. So we had the first one Wednesday, 11:55 a.m., right around lunchtime, Great Abaco Island. 70-mile-per-hour winds. The second one happened at 6 p.m. yesterday on Grand Bahama Island. That was a 75-mile-per-hour hurricane at that point. Same time it was making landfall there, it became a hurricane. And then we had a third this morning around 3 a.m. just south of Vero Beach. That was 75-mile-per-hour winds. Now, I want to blow your mind with something. Look at this. This is Ian, right, that came through earlier this year. We all know that. Nicole came through just like that. That's 2022. Remember we compared Ian to Charlie a lot? Look at 2004 with Charlie. Look at Gene. Almost exactly the same. 43 days apart were Charlie and Gene. Now let's go back to this one. Let's go back, yes, to Ian and Nicole. Very, very similar. 43 days apart. Amazing. You can imagine the conspiracy theories on the internet right now, right? Here's the wind. You see all this out here? This still has to come through here. It is weakening. It is moving away, but that's what's blowing the water up along the coast. It's up about 2 1/10 of a foot higher than what it should be in the bay, but look at the wind forecast coming down. That's a good thing. Now, talk about the rain thinning out. This is 5 o'clock. Still some decent banding. Look by about 10 o'clock. A lot less, and that will continue to move away as we work our way through overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Now, let's head over to meteorologist Natalie Ferrari, and let's talk about some of those winds and what we can expect in the long term.
In the long term, we're still seeing, as you mentioned, all that water being pushed up onshore, and that flow will continue to happen, especially as we go through the next couple of hours with that onshore flow. So let's talk about how much rain we've seen so far, because again, we've seen these swaths where these showers have been dumping quite a bit of heavy rainfall and then much lighter rainfall in the same areas over and over. And those models were pretty spot on as far as us seeing anywhere between 2 to 4 inches of rainfall just within the last 24 hours from Nicole alone. In some isolated areas, especially as you get towards eastern Pasco, even through far southeastern Pinellas, we've been seeing a few isolated spots barely exceed 4 inches of rainfall. But overall, this has been water that we can actually handle as far as what's been falling from the sky. Now we're watching the potential for surge because, as mentioned, as we go through the next couple of hours, those wind gusts, they're slowly coming down, which is some good news. They're going to continue to come down through this afternoon and into the evening, through those 20 to 30 mile per hour range for wind gusts, and then slowly but surely weakening. The more we get those winds to come down, the less of a concern we have with surge. But as of right now, with those winds staying a little on the higher side, we're already starting to see up towards Cedar Key those tides running about 3 feet above normal, and towards the immediate bay, closer to about 2 feet at this hour. So the more we get those winds to lessen up, the lower our threat of that peak surge will start to kind of dwindle. So I think it's going to be at least through this afternoon and into this evening that we're primarily keeping a very, very close eye on the coastal areas for coastal flooding, especially up towards the Nature Coast. But that will improve the more we get this to drop down, the more we get those winds to drop down. As Bobby mentioned, we've got some comfortable 60s out there and some 70s. I do think that's going to be really staying in the forecast over the next several days. Current dew points. When you have dew points in the 60s, yeah, especially with some of that humidity, it still feels pretty sticky out there, but look at some of that drier air that is going to be pushing on down, helping to allow for conditions to feel more comfortable. Not only will it kick the rain on out of here, which there will be a few showers that will linger for tomorrow, but look at that drying that takes over into the weekend and even going into next week. It is going to look and feel fantastic. You'll see temperatures truly just staying stuck in those 70s here for us over the weekend. There may be some spots we'll try to bump up back to 80 degrees, but look at that rain-free looking forecast really once we get past Veterans Day tomorrow. We'll be right back.
All day we have had crews checking on conditions around the Bay Area.
Let's go live now to Pasco County, where 10 Tampa Bay's Liz Crawford is in Holiday right now. Liz, what's it like out there?
I'll tell you what, guys, the conditions have significantly improved since I hit the road at 9 o'clock this morning. I can tell you I'm right on US 19 in Holiday, and there are a lot more cars on the road than what we saw 6 hours ago, because by noon, things started to really look a lot better. I do want to show you what I ran into earlier this morning, though. This was actually a carport outside of a home that had kind of blown off the structure and then landed on the neighbor's pickup truck. So that was a bit of a mess. It was kind of just clinging to the truck there. Then we drove a little bit more. All of this was in Holiday, and there was a TD Bank that had been damaged. The sign was in the middle of the parking lot, and even the awning, the ceiling of the awning had started coming off. So, I mean, again, when we started the day, it was really gusty, and the rain was pretty intense. It was the sideways rain that we get during these tropical systems. But our meteorologists told us it was fast moving, and we certainly saw that play out. By noon, the Chili's just up the road was packed. It had a full crowd. You could see this morning why they canceled schools. No doubt dangerous just walking to the car. But now, like I said, I saw somebody riding a bike out here. I wouldn't say it's the best bike riding weather, but people are definitely out on the roads here. US 19 has a lot more traffic, and overall, conditions have greatly improved. Little bit of flooding in the parking lot, but again, certainly better than what we saw earlier this morning. Minimal property damage. I did talk to some of the crews here in Pasco County. They were on standby, but they hadn't seen anything too serious in this part of the county. In Pasco County, Liz Crawford, 10 Tampa Bay.
You know, thank goodness Chili's was open on Highway 19, because we all know there's not enough fast food on Highway 19.
There's not. Oh, but it's Chili's. Special coverage of Tropical Storm Nicole continues at 3:30.
Next, we're going to get the latest on the storm's track.